And now we'll look a bit further about concrete solutions, basically, for customer privacy. It's kind of great that that so neatly connects to some topics we just discussed with Miriam, and also data sovereignty. I have Adam Preis with me here today. He's the Senior Product and Solution Marketing Manager at ForgeRock. Adam, I'll leave the stage to you. Thank you for being here.
Thank you very much, and it's a pleasure to be here with you and everybody else. And thank you for your time. It's a great event to be joining here. So, my name is Adam Preis, and I've been with Fordrock for close to 2 years now. And during that time, I've been helping Fordrock with our sole mission, which is effectively helping people safely and simply connect with the digital world. And during this time, I have the privilege of seeing how purpose-built identity and access management can help to enable privacy experiences to help organizations not only achieve regulatory compliance, but also drive long-lasting trust and loyalty, which is so critical in today's hyper-competitive market. Now, the reality is that privacy is critical to doing business. And for a number of years now, privacy has been, from what we say, viewed from a somewhat of a reductive perspective of just achieving regulatory compliance. So whether it's complying with GDPR in Europe, CDR in Australia, the CCPA in California, privacy is no longer just about meeting statutory requirements or avoiding fines. Privacy in our increasingly digitized world is about building trust with consumers. Get it right and you build loyalty. Get it wrong and don't be surprised to see your customers bounce to the competition. But that's not all. Privacy in a cloud-enabled world is also about data sovereignty. And by extension, privacy is also about seamless, secure, and scalable customer experiences, where purpose-built digital identity is king. Now, my little keynote here will last no more than 30 minutes today, and we'll leave some time for Q&A. And we've also got a session running later in the afternoon that I'll provide you with more information at the conclusion of this session. So feel free to post your questions in a Zoom client, and I think the moderator will pick them up, and then we can get to that at the end. But before I actually dive into my presentation, I wanted to test the temperature, if you will, in the room, and I wanted to really pick up on the recent ruling from the Karlsruhe German Higher Regional Court, which, as I think many of you know, on the 7th of September. Overturned the decision of the procurement chamber in Baden-Württemberg that banned German public organizations in the region from using US-based cloud providers as a means of preventing and mitigating potential unauthorized access by US intelligence agencies. So I've got this question here in front of you. It's a multiple choice question. You could use your QR code, so you can discard the QR code that appears on the screen, or you can go to slido.com and type in that number that appears there on the screen. So if we could give you maybe a minute or so, get your votes in. It'll be very interesting to see where the sentiment in the room is at. So let's have a look. So we've had two respondents so far. So far, the audience is saying, hey, it's too early to tell. Okay. Anyone else? Any other thoughts? Okay. So some of you think that actually, this ruling might lead to German organizations reducing the reliance on cloud-based providers. Okay. So it's interesting. I mean, we're getting a bit of a split audience here, from what I can see. I'll give it, maybe 30 more seconds before we move on. Okay, very interesting. But as we can see, the overwhelming majority of the audience still is saying it's too early to tell. And that's pretty much the position that we at Fordrock have as well. We are monitoring these developments with great interest, but obviously, from our perspective, we would concur with that it's too early to tell. So, okay, so let's move on to the next question. I've got another question for you before I get into the monologue, shall we say. So I just wanted to test the audience, see, and I'll talk about Schrems 2, and obviously Schrems 2 is driving a lot of discussions and engagements at this great conference. So at a high level, what comes to mind when you talk about Schrems 2? Pop in your word, use the QR code at the top left of the screen, and let's see where the sentiment's at. Okay, so we've got participants replying. Here we go. Looks like a lengthy position there. Okay. No, I think whoever was typing in there withheld their opinion. Don't be shy. Landslide. Interesting. Landslide. That could be many things. Okay, we've got 2 more participants typing in. Let's see what comes up. Okay. So I'm guessing from the fact that the audience is a little bit shy about this, that people are holding back their views. Uncertainty. Okay. Yeah. That's for sure. Yeah, we would concur with that as well. Okay, that's very interesting. But I think this just goes to show me that, you know, it's too early to see what this recent ruling has had in Germany that I've referred to, TIA. Okay, interesting. And then when it comes to Schrems 2, again, we seem to be somewhat uncertain about this and what that means for us going forward. Okay, so thank you very much for those who participated in the poll. Let's move into my formative presentation now. Okay, so before I kind of dive into these very important topics of privacy, data sovereignty, and identity and access management, I just wanted to kind of share something about Fordrock for those of you who are not familiar with what we do and who we are. Okay, so our vision is firmly rooted in the passwordless future, where users never have to log in again. And we achieve this by unifying comprehensive identity and access management capabilities into a single, flexible, and scalable platform that leverages the latest in artificial intelligence, machine learning, helping you to reduce the risks, improve digital experiences, while also giving you the power to accelerate what we call no-code access journey orchestrations. And as I mentioned before, our underlying mission is to help people simply and safely connect with the digital world. And we work very closely with prominent global organizations to help them accelerate that customer acquisition, conversion, and retention across the end-to-end customer journey, while also helping them mitigate the risks of cybersecurity breach and identity fraud. Okay, so before we dive into detail, let's take a step back and ask a fundamental question. Why is privacy a big deal? We are all familiar with the infamous privacy activist Maximilian Schrems, who twice challenged Facebook for transferring his personal data between its servers in Ireland and the United States, and won. And not only did these rulings invalidate the existing data privacy agreements, so Safe Harbor in the first instance and then Privacy Shield signed between both the EU and the US, but also raised very important questions about data sovereignty. And what became known as the Schrems 1 and Schrems 2 rulings shed a spotlight on some of the complexities of privacy in a highly digitized world. Now, we know there's a bigger world out there for privacy beyond compliance. But before we look at that, let's look at how privacy regulations are driving change. Over the last 5 years, we've witnessed an explosion in privacy regulations across Europe, Australia, and increasingly the Americas. The GDPR in Europe, the Customer Data Right in Australia, the CCPA in California. Privacy regulations now cover, or are soon to cover, the entirety of the world map. And most of these regulations are concerned with protecting consumers' personal data. However, rarely do these empower organizations to take advantage of privacy to actually help them drive how they acquire, convert, and retain customers and improve their lifetime value. Our engagements with customers, prospects, and partners show us that the regulatory evolution, the long-lasting impact of the pandemic, the technological advancements that are helping privacy and data sovereignty become a much more prominent building block of digital agendas. Now, we are witnessing what we'd call a paradigm shift from a compliance-driven privacy mindset to a trust-driven privacy mindset. And in this new reality, organizations are looking for novel ways of leveraging privacy to build trust and long-lasting relationships with their customers. Get it wrong, break that trust, and you're likely to see your customers defect to competing brands to be never seen again. Now, I can think of one personal example where this affected me and my choice as a consumer. Around 2 years ago, I opened up a corporate banking account with a digital-first banking provider, and my privacy experience proved to be a mixed bag. On one hand, I was given the full visibility into and control over my financial data, shared with third parties through open banking APIs. Now, this made me feel empowered and safe. But on the other hand, my digital banking provider relied on a username and password to protect access to all that information. And that made me feel highly susceptible to a privacy breach, and ultimately drove my decision to leave the bank in favor of a more secure solution. And I would be even less inclined to stay with that provider if I knew my personal data was being carted across borders without any control. Okay, so let's now dive into the concept of data sovereignty. We've seen this term gain increasing popularity since the advent of the Schrems II ruling in the summer of 2020. But since that time, we've also seen many conflate the principle of data sovereignty and data residency. So I believe it's really important to make that right distinction. Ultimately, data sovereignty is defined as a set of rules that dictate how data is stored, processed, and safeguarded based on a jurisdiction where it was collected. In other words, if my banking data is collected in the UK, and it is sovereign in the UK, and that means it's subject to the UK data privacy laws, even if it's transferred for processing in another country. Now, I often refer to data as the new kid on the block, and I'm not a fan of the band, I must admit. But I do so because data sovereignty is a relatively new concept, and one that is becoming progressively more important to managing privacy in a highly digitized world. Now, data sovereignty as a concept does not just cover data storage, but also how data is encrypted, both in state and in transit, how it is processed, and how it's backed up. So it's no good spinning up a data warehouse in the country where data is collected if I am then sending that personal data attached to a support ticket halfway around the world, or relying on a fail-safe recovery from a backup server located thousands of miles across the globe. And this is precisely why many enterprises resident in the European Economic Area have come to see Schrems II as a driver for data localization. This means that all personal data is stored, processed, and backed up in the country where it is collected. Now, if only it were that simple, but in reality, it's far from the truth. The truth is that enterprises in the EEA are highly reliant on cloud-based providers. And that's precisely why 65% of companies in the EU transfer data outside the EEA borders. And to add to this, and according to research from the World Economic Forum, as much as 92% of what we would class as Western data is stored on servers in the US. Achieving compliance with Schrems II is key and non-negotiable, but so is keeping the proverbial lights on. And what I mean by that it's in highly digitized organizations cannot just close the door on US-based cloud providers and build digital solutions in-house or be reliant just on local vendors. This kind of mindset does not yield a positive return on digital investments. It doesn't help them to continuously deliver revenue-generating features to customers, and it does not help them keep ahead of the fierce competition in what is, as we all know, a very fluctuating macroeconomic climate. So, as if that wasn't enough, the volume of cross-data flows is on the rise. And that's because cross-border data flows will shape the future evolution of the data sovereignty regulations around the world, and more broadly, where data is stored, how it's transferred, and how it's processed. Both the providers and consumers of cloud-based technologies will therefore need to adapt to this reality. And recently, the UN Conference on Trade and Development looked at this very question and used growth in cross-regional broadband bandwidth as a proxy for cross-border data flows. Now, as you can see from this slide, cross-border data flows grew dramatically between 2004 and 2015. And this can be largely attributed to the growth in digital transformation and the advent of cloud computing. And it's not surprising to see that the cross-border data flow between Europe and the US dominates this trend. And behind this, we can see a steady rise in cross-border data flow between the US and Asia, the US and Latin America, as well as between Europe and Asia, and surprisingly, the Middle East. Now, let's take a look at the forecast trends for cross-border data flows through 2024. And we can see that the volume of data flow between Europe and the US is going to more than quadruple. We can also see that data flow between Europe and Asia is set to more than double. And this trend will continue as consumers and citizens shift from physical to online channels to access services. And this trend, as we all know, has been accelerated by the pandemic and increasingly business desire to cut costs as we again enter a period of prolonged economic uncertainty. Organizations heavily reliant or invested in digital transformation have two choices to address this undeniable trend. They can either localize their data, storage, processing, and backup within the jurisdiction of their operation, or they can alternatively seek out innovative solutions that allow them to meet data sovereignty requirements and deliver superior privacy experiences through flexible, robust, and secure cloud-enabled solutions. Enterprise organizations leading the proverbial pack are those that will be able to achieve data sovereignty in the cloud, meet evolving privacy regulations, and at the same time, deliver first-rate privacy experiences. Okay, so that's all good, but where does identity and access management, or IAM, come into this equation? As mentioned earlier, privacy-driven trust and privacy experiences are increasingly important to doing business. And this is precisely why organizations are investing time, effort, and money into purpose-built IAM, while moving away from homegrown legacy infrastructure, which cannot meet these requirements. Now, we at Fordrock define purpose-built identity and access management as one that is able to firstly meet all the identity use cases across the end-to-end identity lifecycle, and number two, scale and to provide enterprise-grade performance across millions of identities and thousands of concurrent identity transactions. And also one that is able to integrate with all systems, applications, and third-party systems via secure APIs. Now, if you put this together, you get a full-stack IAM offering that is able to deliver a first-rate privacy experience across all ecosystems. But delivering a first-rate privacy experience without due consideration for cybersecurity is, as we all know, not enough. And that's because the attack surface continues to grow day to day. As we know, malicious actors, including crime syndicates, persistent threat groups, and rogue state actors, are getting better at, first of all, industrializing their tool set, and second of all, exploiting the weak spots in enterprise security. So it's all good that you're aligning your data privacy regulations and delivering first-rate privacy experiences that give customers partial control of their data. But if you can't at the same time secure that personal data, you face an existential crisis. And this is not just about securing your customer data. This is also about mitigating unauthorized access across a borderless workforce, a growing partner ecosystem, and a growing third-party supply chain, ensuring that access is granted on a need-to-have basis. This is what we call a principal or least privilege access. Okay, so the story doesn't end there. Being able to deliver first-rate privacy experience is also about scalability. And this is particularly important for enterprises operating across multiple jurisdictions, geographical boundaries, and multi-layered ecosystems. After all, it's great to design a marvelous and compliant privacy experience, but if this cannot scale across all channels and easily be integrated into backend systems, what's the use? The advent of headless commerce and identity-driven development helps organizations scale privacy experiences at peak demand to ensure performance and resiliency. And this also helps organizations leverage the best of no-code orchestration to significantly reduce time to value, improve agility, and allow teams to continuously deliver new privacy features to their customers. Being able to effectively scale seamless and secure privacy experiences is also helping organizations keep ahead of the malicious actors that exploit IAM blind spots and gain unauthorized access to customers' personal data. Okay, but let's return to data sovereignty. So purpose-built digital identity and IAM helps organizations achieve data sovereignty for what we call full tenant isolation. Now, this is a unique approach to IAM architecture and design, which enables organizations to benefit from SaaS innovation while being assured that the personal customer data is protected and available when needed. So what does this actually mean? Well, most cloud providers store multiple customer data in a single tenant, or if you want to call it a container. Now, this poses a significant risk for privacy and compliance because when one container is compromised, it then exposes the other containers to the threat of that attack being propagated as the blast radius grows. Furthermore, this cloud architecture approach also creates a problem of what we call nosy and noisy neighbors. So peak demand on one container creates a potential service liquidation issue across other containers in that tenant, increasing latency and potentially causing customers to defect competing brands. Now, wouldn't it be great if there was a solution to meet all these problems? Well, there is. At Fordrock, we deploy a patented cloud architecture approach that we call the full tenant isolation. Now, as you can see from the right-hand side diagram here, which is in color, each customer using the Fordrock Identity Cloud receives their own tenant as standard. And this provides further security, limits the potential blast radius caused by cyber attacks, and ensures peak performance resiliency. But that alone is not enough to help enterprises achieve data sovereignty and compliance and deliver those those privacy experiences that I talk of. Many US-based cloud providers have global reach, but are in effect centralized in where they store, process, and back up their data. And that means that customers have little flexibility to decide where to house and back up the data. And that leaves them behind the curve and potentially excluded from the innovative cloud-based solutions that can really help their businesses move forward. But again, what if there was a solution to address these problems? Well, there is, because by giving organizations access to a globally distributed network of data centers, we give them the decision to decide where to store and back up the data. And at Fordrock, we provide a choice of 17 data centers distributed around the world, including 5 in Europe, 2 of which are based in Germany. And this helps enterprises maintain flexibility, gain access to cutting-edge purpose-built IAM technologies, and deliver first-rate privacy experiences to their customers. And speaking of innovation, certainly this is something that excites us here in Identity and Access Management segment. I couldn't stress the need for future-proofing investments. And as I mentioned earlier, data sovereignty and privacy regulations are evolving at a very rapid pace in Germany, in Europe, and across the globe. What was relevant and fit for purpose today might not be so tomorrow. And that's precisely why investing in cloud innovation is critical for vendors like Fordrock. These allow us to keep abreast of major tech developments in our segment, ensuring that we invest an appropriate amount of time and effort in leveraging technologies that can help to address some of the challenges that we address today. But also very importantly, they allow us to ensure that we're actually able to take the mature technologies that have reached the plateau of maturity and bake them into our platform, providing customers that assurance and reliability. So if I move forward now, that's pretty much concludes my presentation today. I wanted to thank you for listening in. Before we get into Q&A, I just wanted to say that my colleagues Matthew and Ruth are running a virtual workshop today. That virtual workshop will be, I believe, starting at 3:30 CET. So if you have questions, want to discuss some of the issues in more depth, then feel free to come along. But I now pass back to the moderator and happy to field any questions.
Thank you so much, Adam, for this most interesting overview about the different aspects that really enhance privacy. Maybe one question from me, because what I have noticed is there's definitely an increasing demand in privacy-friendly solutions, data protection that is built in every system. You also mentioned the digital identity aspect of it all. Do you see an increased demand in what you're doing, like especially in the last couple of years, last 2 years?
Yeah, most certainly, without doubt. I mean, just looking at some of the requirements coming in from our potential customers and prospects, Schrems 2 and privacy is fast moving up the requirements list. So it's in effect, compelling organizations like our own to look at that data sovereignty and privacy landscape. But also we're witnessing that, our customers and their end users are putting pressure on them to actually deliver first-rate privacy experiences. Consumers and end users want to be in control of their data. They want to be in control which third parties that data is shared with. They want to have access to that. They want to have visibility into that. And, if their vendors cannot provide them with solutions that meets that requirement, they will simply look for alternatives, like I described to you in my example, in my experience of engaging in that particular field in banking. So definitely, this is a fast evolving and a trending requirement in our segment.
I absolutely look forward to to discussing exactly that soon, maybe even again next year at our next Bitcoin Privacy Conference, but also you already mentioned it at the workshop later today in the afternoon with your colleagues. So I think we will dive a bit more deeply into the whole Schrems 2 post CJEU ruling discussion there as well. So looking forward to having your colleagues here with me in it's not even an hour, half an hour. Adam, thanks to you also for your great presentation today. Dear members of the audience, if you have any questions, absolutely feel free to reach out to Adam and his team. I know they are absolutely happy to answer every question that you might have. And Adam, thank you for being here today. Hope to see you soon.
Thank you very much.